Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Allison and today I'm going to talk about my spring knitting plans. As somebody living in Canada, it's definitely a little bit early to be thinking about spring knitting plans. We're still very up and down, above zero one day, below zero the next. We've been getting snow on and off. Right now at the window I see snow and I also see grass, so March is really just a mixed bag, and we can't really count on it being spring until about midway through April at the earliest. So a lot of this is going to be knit a little bit ahead of season. I have a bit of a mixed bag on this list between things that are very springy and almost borderline summery, and also some items that will be great transition pieces as we are transitioning out of winter and into spring. One thing that was important to me for this season and probably going forward into the rest of the year, but especially for now, is keeping not only a manageable number of items, but also trying to knit entirely from stash. There is one kind of exception that I will get to eventually. Actually, there are two. There are two exceptions that I will get to when I will address those. But for the most part, everything here is going to be knit from stash, which is really exciting because one of my goals for 2025 was to significantly reduce the yarn that I have in stash. I'm not going on a yarn buying ban per se. I don't want to limit myself in that way in case, something comes up and I really would like to purchase yarn for it. Maybe there's a gift I want to knit or even something for myself. But I'm really trying hard to actually use the yarn that I have in stash because I have a lot of great stuff, and of course I'm buying quicker than I can actually knit it up, and I'm running out of some storage space in my condo, so it would definitely be good for me to get a lot of this out of here. So without further ado, I will jump into the plans. Forgive me if I'm looking down this way a little bit. I have my laptop here with all of my notes on the patterns that I'm going to be knitting, but the first one I have is actually already a whip. I had mentioned in my 2025 knitting plans that I have a serious lack of cardigans in my hand knitted wardrobe. I have one hand knitted cardigan that I wear fairly regularly, but it is quite warm. It is knitted up with Knit Picks Wool of the Andes worsted. It is knitted up with Knit Picks Wool of the Andes bulky. So it is definitely a heavier sweater. And so it'll be nice to have some more maybe DK weight cardigans in my wardrobe. So I was considering a few different DK weight cardigan patterns, one of those being the Eva cardigan by PetiteKnit, but I eventually settled on the other option that I had, which is the Paul cardigan by Moreca Knit. So this is what I have so far. It really doesn't look like much. So the Paul cardigan is a saddle shoulder construction cardigan, which I've never actually done before, but essentially you cast on and knit these like rectangles with decreases, two of them, and then you attach them in the center back and then pick up stitches and go from there. So what I have right now is the saddle shoulders. I have the upper back part, and I've gotten started on the front right side. So I probably could have blocked those shoulder sections before casting on. That would have actually made it a lot easier to show this knit. But so far, I'm really blasting through this. I think I only casted this on about a week ago, so it definitely still falls within that spring kind of time frame. I started it in March, so I'm going to count it. But yeah, so when I was weighing options between this cardigan and the Eva cardigan, I was really drawn to some of the unique design features that the Paul cardigan has. I love the way that the saddle shoulders are constructed. I think that's really unique, and I've never done anything like that before. And I will insert a photo, but when the cardigan is all knit up, the saddle shoulders kind of give sort of a curved effect on the back where those two pieces of knitting sort of droop downwards into the sleeves. And I just think that looks really cool and unique, and I have never knit anything like that. I don't own anything that looks like that. So I thought it was a nice little touch. It also has a hybrid button band neckline situation, which again is something I have not seen on any other cardigans before. So essentially the neckband area right here is knit up in 2x2 rib, And the rest of the button band, just from here downward to the bottom, is in double knitting. So I'm not too sure yet what the construction looks like on that. I haven't gotten that far in the pattern, but I'm really excited to try that. It's definitely something I've not explored before, so it could be an exciting venture. Along with that, this cardigan also has some really thick, substantial 1x1 ribbing at both the sleeve cuffs and the hem around the body. And overall, I just think it looks really, really cozy from all of the sample photos that the designer has posted. And in particular, String Things by Mel, I know, has made 2 of these cardigans now. And she was the one who really introduced me to the pattern. And I've loved both of the versions that she has knit up. So this has definitely been on my list for a while, ever since I watched those videos. And I'm really, really excited to have this in my wardrobe. I will just mention the yarn I am using. This is Sannisgarn Peer Gynt. This is actually my first time using Peer Gynt, which is very exciting. I'm liking it so far. It is feeling a little bit stiff, but I know that this is supposed to be one that really softens with blocking. So I can't wait to see how this garment transforms once I get it blocked. But yeah, this is the color. I believe it's called Spiced Apple, but on the tag I'm only seeing some numbers, and I don't know which one is the color and which one is the dye lot. I believe it's color 3854, and in English it is the Spiced Apple color, and it's just this nice kind of dusty, reddy pink. I don't really know how to describe it, but I really love this color, so I'm super excited to have a cardigan in this pink. The next item on my list is the Maggie vest by PetiteKnit. This is a pattern that I've actually had my eye on for quite some time, ever since she released it, pretty much. I was never the type of person who gravitated toward O-neck cardigans or vests, but I have found myself in the last little while really being drawn to them and wanting more and more to have some in my collection. The only cardigans I own right now are V-neck, as well as vests. So it would be nice to add a little bit of round neck action to my hand knitted wardrobe. So I will be knitting this up in the Woolberry Fiber Co. Berry Cozy DK in the color Weekends at the Cider Mill. This is just like a beautiful, dark, somewhat foresty green with definitely some hints of black in there as well. I will say it's darker in person than I had expected when I was ordering it, but I do think it is a really gorgeous color, and it fits in kind of the color palette that I like to knit for myself, which is sort of dark, kind of wintry tones. So this cool green, I'm really vibing with it. This was one of the Woolberry Collective colorways, I believe, for the month of October. And in the collective, you get the 1 skein per month, but I loved this color so much that I decided to add on 2 more. So I'm really, really excited to knit this up. I got this yarn with the intention of knitting this exact vest. So I can't wait to cast this on. I think this will probably be my next cast on, although I do have even more cardigans on this list, and I wonder if I'm going to get fatigued with all of the back and forth knitting. I think maybe including something in the round could be nice. So all of this is subject to change at all times, of course. The Maggie vest is a pretty popular PetiteKnit pattern. I'm sure most people have seen it around by now on Ravelry and Instagram, but it is essentially an O-neck vest with 1x1 ribbing details for the button band, the armholes, and the hem. The back appears to be knit using increases rather than short rows, which I know is a common design feature on several PetiteKnit patterns. Off the top of my head, I know the Lyon sweater does the same thing because I knit that a couple years ago now. And other than that, it is really just a simple stockinette vest that I plan on wearing probably mostly just as a top. We'll see if that's a smart decision, being knit up in wool and how hot the summers get here. But I think it'll be kind of a nice transitional piece, like I said, for those earlier summer days, late spring days where it's not too hot yet. I also think this could be a nice piece for my trip to the south of France upcoming this spring, where it's definitely warm, but not nearly as humid as it is here in Montreal. So it could be a nice piece to wear when we are at the beach, for example, or just walking around town. I think this will be a really nice addition to my wardrobe, and not something that I have anything similar to in my hand-knitted wardrobe or just my store-bought wardrobe. So something that I think will add a little bit of flair to my wardrobe. The next item I want to knit is not really any specific pattern, and I don't have a yarn picked out for it yet either, but I would love to knit myself a headband to wear when I am out on my runs as we are getting into the warmer season. So I've mentioned in the past, but I'm a runner. I have been running on the treadmill throughout the winter out of necessity, but I definitely do prefer running outdoors. And we're in the time of year now where it's still cold, but the sidewalks and paths are starting to clear up a little bit, so I can get myself out there and actually do some outdoor running, which is very exciting. But I realized like last week that I don't know where any of my headbands are that I typically run in the winter. So why not knit one? I don't have a yarn in mind yet. I do have some black yarn in stash that I was considering because the majority of the gear that I'm wearing while running is black. So just for kind of a cohesive look. But it could also be fun to just knit a pop of color to add to my knitting wardrobe. My shoes are always very bright, so maybe I could try and coordinate the headband and one of my pairs of shoes. I brought this as sort of a placeholder because it is a really, really soft yarn, and I think I want to go with something that is going to be very soft and very comfortable since I'm going to be wearing it close to my face. I will definitely get very warm in this. I tend to run hot, and especially when I'm running, and this is a 100% superwash merino wool. So it's definitely going to do the job to keep my ears warm. I'm thinking of using the weekend hat by PetiteKnit as kind of like the blueprint, just to give me the correct number of stitches, because I have knit that hat for myself in the past and I really enjoy the way it fits. So I think it'll be easy to just cast on the correct number of stitches, knit up to a certain point, and then just fold that over so that I can have a double layered headband. I think PetiteKnit actually does have a pattern for a weekend headband, but because I already have the hat pattern and I can probably reverse engineer what the headband should look like, I don't know that it's worth purchasing another pattern for that. So I'm just going to wing it. I'm sure it won't be too hard to figure out, and this will be definitely a necessary addition to my wardrobe. So kind of more of a winter knit maybe, but definitely very useful. Next up is one that is a little bit out of my comfort zone, but I'm really excited for it. I want to knit the Olive Top by Pernille Larsen of Knitting for Olive. I've been seeing this tank top almost ever since I started knitting, definitely ever since I started my knitting Instagram page, and I've loved it. Or I'll say I have had kind of an on and off love-hate relationship with it, but I think I've come back around now to really loving it. Definitely more of a summer knit even than the last one, but again, because I am going away in May, I think it'll be a nice piece to have with me on that trip. It'll definitely be warmer in the south of France than it will be here in May, or at least it should be. So I think I can still get some use out of this, and it's also something that I can always wear under a cardigan if I want to. This top is a spaghetti strap tank top with what looks like double knitted straps, and the lace motif all over is meant to look like leaves, which I think is really beautiful. And it's also finished off with a nice scalloped edge, which is another technique that I've never done before. So a little intimidating, out of my depth for sure. We'll see how enthusiastic I'm going to be about knitting this, considering it is done in fingering weight on quite a small gauge, but I am up for the challenge. It's always fun to try new techniques and knit new types of items that you've never knit before. So I'm going to give it a go. We'll see how it goes. The yarn I'm planning to use for this is yarn I've had in my stash for quite a while in a very weird quantity. And in hindsight, I don't know why I only got 4 balls of this yarn, but I think it will be a perfect amount to knit up this top. And I'm knitting this in Knit Picks once again, Palette, which is a 100% wool. So again, maybe not the smartest for a summer garment, but I know I don't really enjoy wearing cotton. As for other summer fibers, I haven't really tried too many. I really would have loved to knit this up in maybe a linen yarn like the Lina from Sanisgarn or even the pure silk from Knitting for Olive. But in an effort to knit from stash, I'm going to give it a try with this wool. I imagine that doing the lace work might be a little bit easier on a wool yarn since it's a bit more gritty and not slippery. I've, again, never knit lace before, so I really don't know what to expect. But I think this will make for a nice light top, and because it is quite minimal coverage, I don't think I will overheat too much in this top. So I'm giving it a go. We'll see. If I really love the pattern and feel that I need it in another color, I'm absolutely open to trying a different kind of yarn fiber. But for now, I think this weird quantity of wool is going to be perfect. This I didn't even mention. The shade is called Victorian, and it's just a beautiful, once again, sort of dusty pink. Compared to the Peer Gynt, it's definitely, actually on camera it looks quite a bit closer than in person, but the Peer Gynt is quite a bit darker, I would say. It's really hard to show the difference, but I guess I'm just in my pink era, my pink moment. One more thing I will quickly address, because I know I use a lot of Knit Picks yarns. I talk about them in, I think, probably every single video I've uploaded at this point because they make great yarn, it's affordable, and they have a great color selection. I have told myself that for now, while everything is kind of going on with these tariffs and whatnot, I will be putting a halt to my shopping from Knit Picks, which is really sad. And I love the company and I love the yarn that they produce. I've knit countless garments with Knit Picks yarn, but in an effort to keep my dollars here in Canada for the time being, I will be trying to be a little bit more conscious about shopping locally from Canadian mills and dyers and even my local yarn shop. I'm just really trying to make an effort right now to not be spending my money on anything coming from the United States. I'm sure a lot of people can understand where I'm coming from with this, but for now, while all of this is still ongoing, I really do just want to support Canadians. So if you have any recommendations for Canadian yarn dyers or mills or Canadian yarn shops, even Canadian pattern designers, please leave them down below. I would love to see them, and maybe other people who are looking to shop more Canadian as well can be inspired by some of these suggestions. This next one is going to seem a little bit redundant. I know, I'm fully aware, but I want to knit the Maggie cardigan by PetiteKnit. I never really understood the purpose of a short-sleeved cardigan, because if I'm grabbing for a cardigan, it's typically because I'm cold and I want my arms covered. But I saw this cardigan, I will include a photo, being sold on Aerie, and I love it. I just love the look of it. Maybe not the most practical, but I just think it looks so cool. And considering I know how to knit and I don't want to be purchasing any acrylic knitwear garments going forward, I thought, why not just knit this myself? So it's definitely different from the Maggie cardigan pattern. The Aerie cardigan has ribbing all throughout it, or what looks like maybe 1x1 or 2x2 ribbing, and some really minimal details. So it looks like there's ribbing around the neck and button band, but none at the sleeves or on the hem. So I just thought this was really cute. So the plan right now is to basically take the Maggie cardigan and adapt it to create this beautiful cardigan that I saw on Aerie. And now that I think about it, I could probably very well get away with just purchasing the pattern for the Maggie vest and adding my own sleeves, since I would likely be changing up the sleeves quite a bit anyway. I think the sleeves on this inspiration photo are a little bit wider and definitely look a little bit longer. So I think I would probably just play around with stitch count and try and figure it out on my own. I'm still unsure if I will try to mess with the stitch count at all to try and get this ribbing all around it. I know there will be some math involved in that because, of course, your stitch count has to be a multiple of 2 for the ribbing, but I think it's probably a fairly manageable modification that I could make. And I just can't get the idea out of my head. So now I really want to knit this. I also am not against just keeping the plain stockinette all over. It'll probably be a game time decision. I might knit up a couple swatches and see which fabric I prefer. But that is sort of the plan with this Maggie cardigan. I don't know if I can even call it the Maggie cardigan. It'll have the bones of the Maggie, but it'll be adapted to fit sort of my vision. So my plan is to knit this up in Pearl Soho line weight, held together with a loft mohair from Knit Picks, which is somewhere in my stash, but I could not find it for the life of me. So I will be tearing the room apart later to try and find it. I believe the color I have for a loft is called Carbon. And this line weight here is called Fieldstone Gray. So I think it's getting a little bit blown out, but it is kind of a dark gray color. I had initially purchased this to knit the Tonight top by Lily Kate Makes, which is still something that I absolutely want to make in the future. But because I'm trying to knit all this stuff from stash, I don't want to just be sitting on yarn for someday I will knit XYZ. I want to be using what I have, and if I am still inspired to knit that same pattern somewhere down the line, I'm okay with repurchasing yarn for that. But I don't want to just be sitting on large sweater or vast quantities of yarn just because I might use them someday for some dream project. Also, I forgot to mention the line weight is a 100% merino wool, and it is very soft. It is going to be so nice against skin. I will probably wear this top again with nothing underneath it. I guess we'll see. But this will be a really nice next to skin feeling. And I know the Aloft is very soft as well. So really excited about this one as well. Another pattern that was sort of inspired by just yarn I had laying around in my stash is the Blouse #1 Light by My Favorite Things Knitwear. This is a very simple all over stockinette blouse style top with no ribbing finishing anywhere. It's, I think, just stockinette all the way down to the sleeves and the body as well. And I was inspired by this mohair that I found in stash that I've had for years and years and have never used, in this sort of berry red color. Again, not too far off from the rest of the colors that I've been showing in this video, but a little bit darker, a little bit more berry. This is the Super Kid Silk from Mayflower that I purchased from Hobby, I want to say at least 4 years ago now. And I think I had purchased this with the intention of making a cumulus blouse, but I am still a little bit undecided between the cumulus blouse and the blouse #1, rather. And for right now, I've been sort of leaning toward the blouse #1. I really like the bell sleeves that it has to it and sort of the very minimal finishings. I know the cumulus blouse has an I-cord neckline, and I believe also I-cord at the wrists, whereas this one is just really bare bones, and you finish off with stockinette. Again, I don't have the pattern yet, so don't quote me on that. But I think this will make a really beautiful garment. It's not the softest mohair I've ever felt, but I think it should be okay. I'm not overly sensitive when it comes to yarn itchiness. And I would likely be wearing a tank top or something underneath anyway, because I do not think this will be opaque, even with 2 strands held together. I'll have to knit up a swatch to see. But again, really not a practical garment when you think about it. All over mohair for someone who gets hot very easily. I think either it's really cold and I want a big bulky sweater, or it's really hot and I want to be wearing nothing. But in an effort to get out of my comfort zone a little bit with the types of things I'm knitting this year, I think this could be a really fun addition, a bit of a statement piece, if you will. So this is something I'm really looking forward to. I actually also am not against finding a pattern that just uses 1 strand and have a really open, loose gauge, and maybe create some kind of a top that would obviously be worn with something underneath it at all times. But I know Rebecca from Hip Knit Hooray has done a similar pattern. I'm not sure if it's the blouse #1, but I really loved how that looked. She made it in a red color, a really bright orangey red, and I think it looked fantastic. So that's also something that I'm kind of playing with. This one is a little bit up in the air, but I'm excited that I have a sweater quantity of mohair that I can sort of experiment with. My very last spring plan is actually a fall plan. Let me explain. I want to knit the Dagmar jacket by PetiteKnit. Now, I want this ready for fall, but knowing me and seeing how many cables and how intricate this piece is, I know it's going to take me months to finish. So I would like to ideally cast this on this spring and then maybe work on it kind of casually throughout the summer so that it's ready for, say, October when the temperatures start to drop a little bit. I've been obsessed with this pattern ever since it came out, and admittedly, I was fully on board with knitting the Dagmar sweater instead of the cardigan because, like I mentioned, I never really gravitated much toward these round neck cardigans, but something changed within me, and I've made a 180 and I'm obsessed with this design. I plan to knit it in a size large, which is one size up from what I usually wear in PetiteKnit, just because I really want it to be a jacket rather than a cardigan. I want this to be kind of a transitional fall jacket that I can wear outside with just a t-shirt or a tank top underneath. And, you know, it probably won't be the most practical going into winter when I have to be able to stuff things under my winter coat, but it could be just a nice piece to wear around the house when it is cold in here, and of course use as a transitional jacket in the spring and fall. So for the yarn for this one, this was kind of the exception that I made, the two yarns that I purchased that were not already in stash, but I purchased them specifically because I had hit a milestone on my YouTube and wanted to treat myself. So these yarns are the Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino and the Soft Silk Mohair in the color Marzipan, which is a nice off-white. It's a little bit more beige than I'd expected. I thought it was going to be a cooler white, but I think it is really gorgeous, and I'm really excited to have a piece in this color. I think it'll be really versatile over brown, over black. I have tons of black, over pretty much any color. It'll look really, really nice. And I know a white jacket can be a little bit scary because I know it can get dirty, but I do really want this to be a piece that I'm wearing the hell out of and really gets worn in and well loved. So I don't mind if it ends up looking a little bit worn over time. I think the white will really show off the cables and the texture nicely. And I am really excited. It's my first time using either of these yarns from Knitting for Olive. I have used their merino in the past, and I've also used their cotton merino. I've enjoyed both of them. I really want to get my hands on some more Knitting for Olive merino. I think it's like perfect, the perfect yarn. I made a hat for my husband last winter out of two strands held together, and he wears this thing every single day. Every single winter day he's wearing this hat, and it has not pilled once. It looks as good as new. So it is a really durable, sturdy yarn, and I'm hoping that the heavy merino is similar. I'm hoping to have a somewhat similar experience with this. And I think regardless, holding it with the mohair would prevent any kind of pilling anyway. But yeah, I'm really, really excited to use these yarns. Now for this one, because I was so excited when the yarn came in, I actually already knitted a swatch. So I can show you what that looks like. This is it. And you know what? I think it looks better on camera than it does in person. So that's actually really reassuring to me. Halfway through knitting the swatch, I had a stupid moment, I guess, where I thought, what is the mohair really doing in this? Like, it's so subtle, you can hardly even tell that it's there. Why would I use it with the heavy merino? But after finishing the swatch, I definitely do think it's necessary to have that mohair. The section down here was knit with the mohair, the section up here was knit without it. And I don't know how well it's going to show up, but on some of these cables here, you can really see the silk core of the mohair, and I didn't love how that looked up close, but no one's going to be looking this close at my knitwear, I don't think. And I definitely think having the mohair has given it a nicer texture. It's softer, the side that has the mohair. It has a nice halo, whereas the side with no mohair obviously does not have any halo. So I will use it with the mohair, and I think to get gauge, I will need the mohair anyway. I was just having a little brain fart moment of why do I even need this mohair? It's so thin, it hardly makes a difference. But I think it makes more of a difference than one might assume. So I'm glad I tried with both just to get it out of my system. And overall, I'm decently happy with this swatch. Like I said, I think it looks better on camera than it does in person. I had almost thought that I had stretched it out too much when blocking, and it kind of looked bad in these purl stitches here. But overall, I think it's okay. And I think in the grand scheme of the whole garment, it'll still look really good. One modification I made was inspired by Morgan from Morgan Unraveled. She is currently working on the zipper version of the Dagmar, I believe. And she, inside these diamonds here, where it is supposed to be, according to the pattern, just purl stitches, she added a seed stitch or a double moss stitch. I, for the life of me, don't know the difference. Please enlighten me if you know. But I just think that adds so much. I've knit a cabled sweater in the past, years and years ago. It was a seamed sweater, so definitely not in the last 3 or 4 years. But I knit a cabled sweater that had very similar cables to this, and the diamonds had that seed stitch inside, and I thought it looked really nice. I think it adds a little something extra on top of just the plain sea of purl stitches here. So I think I will go forward and do that when it comes time to cast on the garment. But I'm just really excited about this. I have been eyeing this pattern for so long, and getting to splurge a little bit on a really special yarn felt really nice. And I think this is just going to be a really special project. I want to take my time with it. I want to enjoy the process of knitting it and hopefully get years and years of wear out of it once I have it as a finished garment. So this is probably not going to get cast on for at least another month, but I'm so unbelievably excited about it. Can you tell? All right, that is it for my spring knitting plans. I wanted to keep this somewhat manageable because I think I tend to get a little ambitious when it comes to seasonal planning. So I think having only 5 or 6 items on my list is manageable for me. A lot of these are garments, and a lot of them are knitted flat back and forth because they're cardigans. So I might be eating my words in a couple months. But I think this is a good amount for how much I've been knitting lately. I've really had the knitting bug lately and have been basically knitting any free moment that I have. So I am really, really excited to get to all these pieces and hopefully have done at least half of them this spring. I know plans are always subject to change, so I can't commit to 100% knitting all of these, but the ones at the top of my list are the Maggie vest, obviously the Dagmar jacket, the Maggie cardigan, and of course the Paul cardigan that I have already started. So I think those are definitely the ones I'm going to prioritize going into the season. And yeah, I can't wait to share. Of course, I will update which ones I've chosen to knit and how they're coming along on my podcast episodes. And I should be back with another regular podcast episode next week. So until then, thank you so much for watching. If you don't already follow me on Instagram, please feel free to do so. If you're not already subscribed to this channel, I would love to have you, and I will see you next time. Bye.